Like, comment, subscribe.
It's the 2nd of July, 1982. Larry Walters takes off and climbs to around 16,000 feet. After a 45-minute flight, Larry brings his aircraft in for landing, but he unfortunately hits some power lines, cutting power to a Long Beach suburb. Larry wanted to be a pilot, but realized that due to his poor eyesight, there was no chance of that dream coming true. But he was determined to fly. It became an itch he had to scratch. When Larry was younger, he remembers seeing weather balloons displayed in a surplus store. The wheel starts turning, and Larry gets an idea. He decides to attach a bajillion balloons to a chair. That should get him airborne. But how will he descend? Easy. By shooting out the balloons with a pellet gun. He also planned strapping on a parachute, just in case. The plan was to take off somewhere in the Mojave Desert, away from public eyes. But his girlfriend, Carol Van Deersen, who was also a part financier in this crazy endeavor, suggested he launch from their backyard, as they'll be closer to medical facilities if something went wrong. The day of the flight, Larry, with his ground crew, did the final checks, by filling the balloons and tying them to the lawn chair. Larry then prepares himself for the flight. After strapping on his parachute, he grabs a couple of sandwiches, with some Miller Lite. Not forgetting his pellet gun and camera. Of course. On 1633 West 7th Street in San Pedro, Larry walks towards his aircraft, and sits down. The plan was to test the aircraft's stability. They tethered the craft to his Jeep. He would climb to the point the tether kicks in, which brings him to a stop. That was the plan, anyway. But that is not what happened. As Larry was ascending, his tether kicks in, but as it tensed up, it suddenly snaps, leaving Larry helpless, as his girlfriend and ground crew watch him launch into the sky. It's not long till Larry reached the 16,000-foot mark. He was spotted by two commercial airliners heading over the Long Beach area, confirming his altitude to be around 16,000 feet. Larry finally begins his descent procedures. He aimed his pellet gun at the balloons, and shoots out a few. Larry knows to be careful. He needs a slow descent. Shooting out too many balloons probably wouldn't have a good outcome, for Larry. In the end, even after dropping his pellet gun, he had everything under control. He gradually descends with the cables from his pop balloons, catching on power lines, cutting the power to a Long Beach suburb, around the 432 East 45th Street area. The police was already there with open arms, to arrest Larry. As Larry disembarked, he was met with the press. Larry states, quote, "It was something I had to do. I had this dream for 20 years, and if I hadn't done it, I think I would have ended up in the funny farm." End quote. Larry had become a local celebrity after his now publicized balloon flight. He's been asked to be a motivational speaker on numerous occasions, eventually quitting his job as a driver to pursue a career as a motivational speaker. He even appeared on Letterman.
Thank you. Welcome back to the show. If you're just joining us, this gentleman is Larry Walters, who recently went up about 16,000 feet with the helium balloons and a lawn chair. And was this, were you frightened?
No, sir.
Well, couldn't you fall out of the chair?
No, impossible.
Well, I've fallen out of lawn chairs in my backyard.
You wouldn't have fallen out of my chair.
Yeah.
I guarantee it. You would not have fallen out of my chair.
You were pretty well strapped in?
I wasn't strapped in at all. I didn't have a safety belt or a seat
You're
belt.
just sitting in the chair.
I was sitting in the chair. Believe me, I knew what I was doing.
But now what guarantee do you have when the chair lifts that you won't be pitched forward or left or right? What kind
in fact, I had the chair pitched. We have this on videotape. We had it pitched back in about a 45-degree angle, a 40-degree angle. And I was pitched back intentionally. Yeah. And then when I was strapped in, even if I had to jump out, it would have been a little difficult to get out of that chair. No, there was no need for a seatbelt. What
about a problem with other aircraft? You mentioned that you were spotted by 2 commercial airline planes. Now, did you actually see any?
That's an honor. No, I did not see or hear any the roar of any jet engines. But at least they confirmed my altitude, which was 16,000 feet. Yeah.
Did you have any? Were you going to do anything to let people know ahead of time that there might be a guy in a lawn chair in the area?
You know, that's when I was going to be tethered for an hour, and then a half hour before, I was going to cut myself loose because nobody else would do it for me. My ground crew were going to notify the proper authorities. We were going to give them a half-hour notice. Now, what I did was wrong. I'm not making excuses, but we were going to give the FAA and all the local airports a half-hour notice. Yeah. And it's by the grace of God that, you know, I didn't hit a plane or...
Now, why was this wrong? How were you different from any other balloonist?
First of all, most balloonists don't go from clusters of weather balloons, and they're very fragile, too. I mean, you could poke your finger through one of them. They're so fragile. Yeah. Or a pin. They can be popped with a pin. That's how fragile they are.
So you did... there is a law against this?
There's a law against taking up a balloon or balloons without a license, and the FAA already said if I had a license, they would have revoked it. But since I don't have a license, they can't revoke it. Yeah. So
now, would you do this again?
No, this was the fulfillment of a 20-year dream. Yeah. And I accomplished my dream.
Yeah. Now, how does that feel, having succeeded in achieving what you always wanted to do?
I achieved inner peace. I've achieved inner peace within myself. Really?
Really?
I'm a happier person today.
Well, that's good. A happier person for it. This is a fascinating story, Larry, and I'm grateful that you could come all the way to New York City and share it with us.
Well, I thank you for inviting me, sir.
Anytime. If you want to do something else, let us know, sir.
I will. Thank you.
Larry Walters, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back after you take a look at this.
In the end, he never really made any real money from these gigs. Surprisingly, his lawn chair is still around, surviving all these years. It's on display at the Stephen F. Advar-Hazy Center. That was clearly Larry's highlight of his life. After his balloon flight, things would spiral down for Larry. He breaks up with his girlfriend of 15 years. Struggle to find employment, but occasionally finds work as a security guard. In October 1993, Larry was out in Angeles National Park with a gun in his hand. He points it to his chest and pulls the trigger. And that's how Larry's story ends. There's been many others that shared Larry's dream, like Tom Morgan, from the UK. On the 20th of October 2017, using 100 color balloons, he reached a height of around 2,500 meters. He covered about 25 kilometers before descending. But Al Mingalone, back in 1937, a photographer, attached 32 balloons to his parachute. He used his rig as a platform to suspend himself in the air, to take aerial shots. But his rope breaks, launching him over 200 meters. A priest, witnessing the incident, grabs his rifle and goes after the helpless photographer, eventually shooting out a few balloons, allowing the man to safely descend.